This is our present. Okay, so this is our presentation for Sean. I'm Paulina.
Michael.
I'm Ethan.
So we have a very brief background. Sean Wilson was born in the Midwest and spent many years of his early life traveling, which instilled a strong love for art and design, and as well as majoring in architecture and design with a minor sustainability while at Philadelphia University, Jefferson, as we are.
Sean has worked in the fields of interior design, architecture, and fashion, utilizing his skills in design and analytics in all his roles in addition to learning multiple systems.
He is currently the digital content assistant at Adidas, managing the statement and hype categories for the North American region. In addition to this, Sean is an abstract artist striving to define the environment around him, both physically and within the digital context. Sean, you can take it away.
Thank you for that introduction. This was so sweet. I did not know that you guys were making this, so I'm very, very grateful. But hello, everyone. My name is Sean Wilson. As you just heard, I currently am working for Adidas. I work in the digital content sector. Also, can everyone hear me fine? Okay, great. But yeah, I work in the digital content sector, and basically what that means is that I am handed over a lot of different images, copy, and I get to choose like how we activate on that content and what that looks like. So sometimes that looks like sending out different emails. It looks like putting together different web pages, or even determining what we are moving forward with that season or not moving forward with. And it's been like a very, very exciting journey. I was not always at this point. So definitely some different roadmaps were taken. Obviously, as you heard, I studied architecture. So I did not start in the fashion department, but a lot of my friends and associates that I knew when I was in college did. So that was really, really what sort of like drove me to like look into the fashion space a little bit. Like I was doing a lot of design work, a lot of design work, and a lot of that was adjacent to what I saw my friends in fashion doing. So like, you know, putting together like trends or like boards or just like inspiration. Like I saw my fashion friends doing that, and I was like, well, you know, I'm doing this and I'm doing this for architecture. So I just saw a lot of overlap. So throughout like my post-college life, I looked at roles that weren't just what I had graduated in. Like I looked at a lot of architecture roles. My first job actually out of college was an architecture specific role. I was working for Parks and Recreation in Philadelphia. And I transitioned out of that to end up working for Urban Outfitters. I was a buyer for them in their corporate office for a while. And when I was doing that, I was actually doing buying for furniture. So I was still sort of tapping into my architecture background there, and just trying to segue into the fashion space a little bit. But I'm just trying to determine what would be best. And I guess this is a question for the group. Like, what would you want to hear first? Like, what would be best? Like, do you want to hear more about like my background, or do you want to hear more about Adidas? Like, I'm just trying to get a pulse check on the class.
Class, he is not asking me, so you all speak up about what you want to hear about.
We can start with your background and just move into, I guess, your progression into your career.
Okay, cool. So going back to background, like, I think it's really important. And I think if anything that I can express to the group is just like, be creative, like never stop being creative. Like the projects that got me the jobs in every single role, like Adidas, Urban Outfitters, various other boutiques, working with different influencers, the things that got me those positions were really steeped in just my creativity. Like I'm an artist, I've been an artist for a number of years. And just like, that's what got me into architecture initially, just like being creative and thinking that my creativity should be in the urban fabric. And moving and then extending on from that, a lot of my friends, like I said, were very fashionable. We just would like just go out in the city, like shoot content, like just do what a lot of people do, whether it's like takes form in a TikTok, Instagram, and formatting that. Like I feel like that's what I was really doing a lot of post like grad. And then doing that like while I was in school as well, just like always building content. And I think in the fashion space, especially, people are not really interested in what you say you can do. People are more interested in like what you can show them. And I think that that's really important too. So like always just be building content and just creative things that drive you and are around you. And then what else? I think my background also, just like I've traveled a bunch too. So I feel like that really is helpful in fashion as well. Like the more you get to see, like the more like exciting you like get. Like I get excited, like I see like different things. Like I've been to France, I was in Paris, like I think like 4 months ago. And it was just really exciting, just like going out to dinner and just seeing how people dress, like seeing how it differentiates in like different places. And like that's something that very much so informs my work as well. Like some of the things that I work on specifically like include things like Ivy Park, Yeezy. These are global campaigns. These are things that are going to be spread to a wide audience. So understanding what's going on from a global context and an international context is really, really important. It is really a part of like my background entirely. Like I come from a mixed family. So like my mother is American, my father is West African. So I've traveled and spent a lot of my life doing that, like whether it is to see family or friends or cousins. And I feel like that has been such an important part of like my fashion career, my art career, my architecture career, just seeing different things around the world and letting it inform how I respond to things.
Okay, so if you don't mind, if we could start with some of our personal questions that we have.
Yes.
All right. So Ethan.
Okay, so my first question is, out of the 3 fields you worked in, which did you feel the most well equipped you from your education at Jefferson? And well, like what out of your education at Jefferson most equipped you for your career, and in which area did you learn the most from on the job experience?
That's a really good question. I think it's really interesting because I'm not sure. Like, I think I was very, very nervous. Like in every single one of my roles, I've been extremely nervous. Like, and like maybe I can say I was the most prepared for my architecture role. When I was working at Parks and Recreation, I was comfortable in that. I had did floor plans. I knew how to read like just architectural drawings, and I understood that space and sort of had insights into that. So I was really prepared for that. A lot of the other jobs that I did have, I ended up leaning on my friends, and like that's another big piece. Like I know I'm sort of going off a little bit, but really lean on your friends and stuff who know different things. Like really, I think the best part about college is how cross-functional it is. And like I use that so much in my career, just like working with different teams, working with different people. Like you can work with different people and learn anything, like for the most part. And that's how I sort of like learned more about like the professional side of things, is that I had friends who were working in like buying already. So they would just say like, oh yeah, like look through this document or send a video, or like even their like college notes. I've looked through some of my friends' college notes for like buying, and just like the math that goes into that, and like just certain Excel things that she learned that like in architecture school I never learned. So, you know, definitely I think that I was the most prepared for my first job out of college. But everything after that, even my current role, like I just had a really crazy meeting today with sort of like the head of the ecom department, and just like was telling him like, yeah, like I completely like learned this like off the rip, like when you guys hired me, but thanks. Like so yeah. I think maybe I learned the most probably in this current role. Like I feel like I've learned the most just because it's just so complicated, and like there's so many moving parts, and there's so many different teams, and like I said, like some things are just global and like done for such a large audience. So like there's a lot of learning in this, and like what you can do and what you can't do.
Okay. So for my second question, in what ways has architecture and design your architecture and design major helped with your areas of work, and in which area has it helped the most in?
I think what it's helped in the most, there's definitely a work ethic piece there with architecture. Like, I'm used to, being told no, going back multiple iterations of things. And also there is sort of like this design element that you are getting when you have like sort of like that design background, like being able to use Illustrator, sometimes like, or even Photoshop will put you a cut above like a lot of your competition. And I feel like that's where architecture really helped me excel. It's like, how do you view things? What is good design? What is not good design? What is visually appealing? Like, what do people want to see? And like, it starts with like layout. Like you can have amazing content, but if you don't lay it out right, or you don't know what that visual hierarchy needs to look like, it won't read well. And I feel like architecture really taught me how to view things and like have sort of an organized way of like formatting.
Okay. For my last question, what sort of challenges do you encounter working a full-time career while also being an abstract artist? And has being an abstract artist ever intersected with any area of your career? And if so, which area has it intersected with the most?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question too. Having a full-time career like is definitely a challenge. Like it definitely is hard week to week. But I think the biggest challenge is sometimes like, especially when you're a creative, like you put so much into being a creative and like, creating for work, you forget that like you enjoy creating in your free time and doing things like that. So I feel like that really is sort of like what I've seen as the challenge with like having an art career where, like I'm applying to different galleries or different open calls and, submitting for that, but also like working maybe a 7-hour day or maybe having answered 45 emails or went to 8 meetings. Like it's a lot after a day of work to say like, yeah, I'm going to draw, or even like, yeah, I'm going to go see my friend. Like it can be a lot after a work day. But I think my art career has always been sort of at an intersection of my professional career, just because like, that's just who I am. I think it helps me like just think through problems and think through like creative solutions and aesthetics. Like I think is a really big part of like just like my art intersecting my work career. So I feel like that's how they sort of combined, and like I come up with sort of non-conventional things sometimes or solutions for work. So I feel like thinking outside of the box is sort of where my abstract sort of career intersects my like sort of professional, more rigid career.
Okay, so these are my questions, and I just wanted to say first, like, I know a lot of people in architecture and stuff like that, and I admire you people so much. You guys really do put in the time and effort, and the fact that you guys can be so creative, like, I admire your work, and I know you've probably been told, but as just a fellow Jefferson student who will become alumni soon as well, I'm just so thankful and grateful that we had you at our school and that you've done so much and you've been able to build your career. Like, honestly, like I just wanted to let you know that before I go into my questions.
Thank you so much. That's
Really
really
appreciate
sweet.
it. Thank you. So in your biography, you mentioned that you strive to define the environment around you, both physically and within digital content. And I just wanted to know is, when did you feel this like moment, or was it like always there? Like, have you always felt that throughout, like when you got into college, or did it one day struck upon you while you were intersecting certain ways?
So I think that it was always something that I was doing. Like I've always been really into fashion. Like I said, I've always been really into travel, different cultures. Like I'm always trying to define like what the space is, or like maybe this is like weird verbiage, but like what the vibe is. Like, you know what I mean? Like just describing what the vibe is. Like, and the vibe is different from moment to moment. It's different from year to year, season to season. The vibe changes, and like I think when I first came into college, like I was very, very much so focused on just maybe what I had been told, quite truthfully. Like my parents, came from a certain type of background. My dad is a doctor, my mother is a scientist. So like I sort of was pushed more so into the architecture field, but I also had a very big passion for it. It was something that I had studied in high school. And so it made sense for me to go into architecture, but I also like always, like I said, pursued other passions. Like I was always doing fashion things on the side, or always like associating with my friends who were doing fashion things, or friends who were influencers. I have a few friends now who now work in PR. So like always sort of like just bouncing off of them and is sort of how I found what I wanted to do while continuing to do, architecture things.
Thank you for that answer. And then for my second question, do you feel like you are able to implement the fields that you have done, like interior design, of course, architecture you have mentioned that you have, and fashion? And of course, you kind of already answered this, but if you could go into more detail, like maybe if there's a lack of in those fields from the past due to the present field you're in now. Yeah.
So I think for those three fields, like, I think so many people have so many different fields. Like, I think we oftentimes just sort of narrow our skills down to like, say like, oh yeah, like I just do fashion, or oh yeah, I just do architecture. Like, you do more than just fashion, you do more than just architecture. Like, really, like your skill set breaks down into like a multitude of things. And I think that's really important to see and understand, is that like, you're not just one thing, like you're multiple things. And that's something that a lot of the business market nowadays is looking for, someone that can do like multiple things. And in terms of implementing like design, like I think what really has helped me hasn't really been a lot of the fashion stuff. What has really helped me has been architecture, like understanding like some of our sort of like first classes that we take, like about like what the rule of thirds is, or like what visually looks good, or like putting things on a page in odd numbers makes, things more visual. And like that transfers into my work. Like when we put like display cards at the bottom of the page, like we don't want to do 8, we want to do 7. Like, and if we don't do 7, we do 5, like, because that's what visually is interesting. So I think really like design has been the biggest part of like feeding what I'm doing now.
I'm glad one of them were able to feed into what you're doing now. And for my final question, how did it feel if and when, if it's even the tiniest piece ever, how did you feel when you saw that your content or work was used, or even, like I said, somewhat shown, even if, like I said, it was the tiniest thing? Like, did you feel that you lacked? Did you feel like you wanted to improve? Did you enjoy your accomplishment? And were you arms open to more opportunities, or was it all a mix at the same time?
I would say maybe it's a little bit of a mix at the same time. I think it's really shocking sometimes, like just throughout my career, like what people have like been like, yeah, like let's move forward with that. Like, it's a lot of really weird stuff. And I think I enjoy it. I think it's really validating. I think in fashion, especially, something that makes me really happy in the digital content sense is that I'm able to share something with such a wide audience that would not be able to see it otherwise. Like, e-commerce is really a big field right now and a really big player in the fashion industry, especially like amidst the pandemic, and just in general is a growing field. And I'm always excited to be able to reach such a large amount of people. Like, it's such an exciting opportunity, and being able to make creative choices. Like, this past week, a sneaker just dropped, and like we completely decided that like the verbiage and the name needed to be changed. But like that was something that someone asked me, and they were like, does this read well? And like, I'm looking at it, comparing it, putting it on a digital page, and then comparing it and then sending it to a group of people to see like, does it read well? And I feel like that never really gets old. Like, I really love that. It's very validating, and like a driving force to see your work, out in the real world, or like even like a push notification coming to my phone, knowing that like, I know the team that worked on it, is always very validating. And I think I'm always open to more opportunities. I think that that's just the best way to be, is like always growing and like always being open to like different things, or what one thing might push you into. Like, you could go like, for example, I was buying at one point, but I was not the worst buyer, but like I didn't love it. It was definitely not what I had thought it was. But I had I switched things up. So like, being open is really important to me as well. But yeah, does that answer? I hope that wasn't like too confusing.
Oh no, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate your words. Thank you.
Oh, Paulina, we love how appreciative you are. I actually have a question I want to interject, because it kind of goes off a lot of Paulina's questions. You had mentioned that your father is West African, and I thought that was a really beautiful thing to bring up, especially during Black History Month and with your talk of travel and your global influences. Would you say that, like, what has been your experience kind of as a first generation artist and fashion mogul and all of that? Has it influenced your work, your artwork, your work in fashion? How do you relate with that?
I think coming from sort of a blended family, it's a beautiful experience. And like, it's oftentimes, I think diversity and equity are overlooked in big corporations. So it's very important to, for me, when I'm handed over digital content, if I get digital content, prioritizing the people of color, prioritizing that content first. And so, I do see like, that manifesting in that way, but also like I said, like growing up, like traveling, like it just gives you different insights. Like, even if it's just for fun, like when you go different places, you meet different people, you create different experiences, and then it begins to just automatically inform you of how you would like to, go about things. Even like, once again, recently I was like in Europe and just going out and like going with my friends, seeing my cousin, and just like seeing that like people have like this cafe culture and like sort of like late night like work culture too. And I was like, oh yeah, like I like that. And like sort of like, making sure like when I come back to America, like shaping like what I do, like whether it's like working from home, working at a friend's, working at a cafe, like, just like doing different things. And yeah, I think it always informs like what I do in terms of creativity, just because like there is a duality between, different cultures and what that looks like in different contexts as well. So I think it's always informing my art. And like, sometimes I want my art to feel, very expressive. Sometimes I want it to feel very high end. And like, that's, something that the fashion space is also very much so about, is like, expressing emotions and like reaching an audience in a certain sense.
Thank you for sharing that.
I have a question. You have a major background in architecture, correct? What I would like to know is, how do you feel, how much of a part has architecture played in the entire sustainability focus that we're experiencing, even though, we all are in fashion, so we all come from a fashion perspective. But tell us how you come from an architectural perspective.
I think that's a really interesting question. I think sustainability is like, it should be at the forefront of everyone's mind. Like, we are living in a time where things are warming up, so to speak, and every industry is accountable and contributes to, not to like the heating up of the earth, basically. And I think a big part of architecture, when we were talking about sustainability, we were looking really in the American context, what that looks like for Western civilization and maybe not the global context. And which is very different. Like, both people in both worlds face different issues, and that is solved by architecture in a very different way. And one way that sustainability is sort of moving towards solving that in the architecture realm is like repurposing how we live, like living more densely, instead of focusing on skyscrapers, working on like, rebuilding neighborhoods. And literally, instead of having like a 5-bedroom home, having that broken up into apartments. I actually watched this YouTube series called Never Too Small on YouTube. And it really like just shows you these really beautiful spaces that people just live in that are just repurposed, and just small, comfortable spaces that do multiple things. So I think that that is sort of how architecture is beginning to sort of address sustainability in a sense, which is completely opposite of like, what fashion is doing in other ways to address sustainability, because once again, they're two different fields.
Very cool. Michael, do you want to take it away with your questions? Just so we can make sure we get through these. We can't hear you, Michael. You forgot to unmute.
My bad. I thought the space bar would work. I'm sorry about that. So Sean, what was the bridge from graduation from Jefferson to employment at Adidas like? Was there a change of pace, and in what ways did that occur?
Andrew, that's a really funny question. That's a hilarious question. But the bridge from maybe graduating to getting employed at Adidas was, I don't know, I don't want to say it was a shaky bridge, but maybe it was a bridge with a nice view that maybe was hard to cross, if that makes sense. Like it like, I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, I just walked straight across the bridge and it was so great. But there were definitely bumps in the road. There were times where, you know, I didn't love what I was doing. I was working at an architecture firm that I didn't love, like, or like, you know, the city. I was working for the city. I didn't necessarily love that, but you know, when you have bills to pay, you have to do what you have to do. But there, I definitely think that there was a lot of peace at many points, just knowing that, you know, I have this degree, I know certain things, I do certain things well, and that, you know, trusting my skills and like what I wanted out of life to actually occur. So I think that, like I said, like it was a bridge with a nice view that was a little difficult to cross, but crossable. And I feel like that's really what the journey was for me thus far. And yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad you crossed. What has been the most important thing you have learned since being in the industry?
I don't know. I guess always be open, I think is a really big thing. Like always just be open, facilitating conversations, like talk to people, be nice to people. I feel like that's really the big thing. Just be nice to people and talk to people. I feel like that's a really great just practice to have. And I think that that has served me so much more, just seeing like what being a genuine, honest, and like real person, how far that can actually get you, rather than being like maybe performative or being something that you are not. Like just being yourself is really, I think, the best thing. And then just like talking and being nice. Like I don't think it's some magical secret.
Amen on that one.
What has been your favorite project to be a part of, be it at Adidas or anything previous before that?
There's a lot. There's a lot of fun projects. Like I've worked on a lot of fun projects while at Adidas. But there's been lots of fun projects throughout like my whole entire career, like in architecture. I was able to remodel a recreation center. Like that was a huge thing for me, just like knowing that in Philadelphia, there are some kids in a community that are, you know, playing in something that is safe and beautiful and like a beacon of hope for them in their community really is something that's really like, that drives me, that makes me happy. In the fashion sense, when I became a buyer at Urban, I think the biggest thing for me was really just like seeing the product in real life. Like when you would go to a store, like seeing things that you had bought or like met with a vendor about, like, I feel like that was like a really big career moment for me in that sense. But in terms of like projects for Adidas, there's been a few. Like I was really excited for my first Jeremy Scott campaign. Like that was a really big deal shoe for me like a long time ago. Like just like the shoes with the wings. I was excited to do that. That was really fun and met some very interesting, quirky people. Last month, I worked on Prada. That was a really big moment in my career. So like meeting people from that side and doing the digital activation for that was like humongous. Like I love high fashion. I love just the intersection of just like streetwear fashion, meeting high fashion, and like understanding that both are some synonymous at this point now. And what else? I also work on a multitude of like the Yeezy drops. So like I always know like what's coming down the line for that. Like that's always really like a fun project just because it's just such a hype project that everyone like is super excited about, and like they don't like let people like see too much into the space. So like you have to like be on a certain team. So it's like nice to be on the team that has that visibility. And Ivy Park, like the Parkwood team is really, really cool. They're very dope people, and like they put just the most interesting visuals together and like have such a vision for like Beyonce and like the Ivy Park brand. I think that any activation that deals with that like are like my favorite.
Does anyone else have chills hearing about these projects in the room? Because I do.
All
Yeah,
down
those
my
are
spine.
really dope. Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a movie. I'm like with the popcorn. Give me more. Give me more.
Ivy Park, Yeezy. I mean, everyone, are we impressed? Are we impressed? This could be you. He went to Jefferson too. Okay. This is your future. Sean, would you be able to potentially share like any of the digital content of some maybe projects that you've worked on?
No, yeah, I definitely can. Let me, I'm on my laptop right now. Let me pull something up.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'll stop sharing right now.
yes.
I'm trying to find something like relevant, something like that's recent or something that we've worked on.
It could even be something that maybe you think that they would recognize that isn't so recent that you've worked on. That would be cool for them too, I feel like.
True.
And I say it would be cool for them. It would be cool for me. It would be cool for Professor Wyatt. It would be cool for Professor Rhodes. It would be cool for Professor Brodesons. We're all on here to see.
I'm texting all my friends like, you don't know who's speaking for seminar today.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm trying to find, I mean, I could just do like my most recent Pharrell campaign if like anyone's interested in that. Like,
We'll take anything you have.
let me go to share screen. I have so many windows open. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when I get it. Like this is before like it's activated on and like before it like hits the website. So like this is sort of like what I do day to day. Like, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So basically what I do is that like a lot of the time, like if I do not send a creative brief over, like, which means that like I'll put together a theme, an idea and say, like, for example, purple is like really in this season. So like I put together something for the MMD collection like that Adidas has and like was saying like, we really want to hero like the purple shoe. But if I don't write a brief for something and like have them deliver over in like the photo studio, take really specific content, then there is global content and things created. Oh, there's global content created. And they will send me like files and basically they will, let me show you on, this will probably make it clearer. They will like send me files and then, so I'll get a picture like this and then I will decide, okay, like this picture should be laid out at the top of the page and then they'll hand me like different copy, like over here, you'll see like inspired by Pharrell's vision and the Dakota way of life. Like when I was handed this over, they actually had like a bunch of different copy for that. And I sort of determined which one was the best one. And then we have like shop now. So it leads you to the shoe. So you can shop the shoe. And then it's like, I put like this image and then this moving image on the side. And these both are like different collections that are like headed up by Pharrell and just making sure like there's an aesthetic sort of feel to the page. So like we're having this immersive experience, which we want to drive for the shopper because this is new, letting people know. Also, you guys, I'm so sorry. Like my team is going to be jumping off the whole time. So just ignore it. But then just like having like a statement that Pharrell has like said for himself that represents like his brand. And then like this
Sean,
experience.
don't be sorry. That's the real world. You're constantly working, right?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, and this is the real world. Basically,
You're in
yeah,
high demand. We get it.
and when you work in like this sort of, oh my goodness. But yeah, in the e-commerce department, like that's just another thing to call out in fashion. I think it's really important to know like a lot of this is emails, a lot of this is meetings, a lot of this is like, you know, organizing this page, for example. Once again, like this shoe was sold out, but it's like prioritized at the top of the page while like other like things that are still in stock, like we have organized and prioritized this page to look a certain type of way based on content that we have sent out. And that's like a really big part of what I do. And then, oh, this as well, like the Bad Bunny, I just did this. Oh my goodness. And just like laying out the images for this, like what looks best, what reads well, and like having like this sort of experience that people can very easily shop. And also like just having things flow on the page, like once again deciding like the different images that were handed over. This was really fun imagery, so I wanted to share this with the class. Like it's really fun to just be able to like pick images and like look at images all day. Like it's like I get to live like in a real world Instagram. So that's some of the stuff I've been working on recently. I can't show any of like the Easy Ivy Park stuff because non-disclosures, but I hope that that like sort of helped explain some stuff.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Anybody outside of my groups have questions for Sean? Outside of the group that presented? Okay, Makeda?
Hi, Sean. I was just wondering like how your transitions were from like each industry you worked in. Like I'm someone who definitely wants to have my foot in like multiple careers, but I imagine it's like scary going from like working in architecture to working in buying. So basically, how smooth was that transition for you, and what inspired you to make it?
So that transition for me, it was truthfully, it was honestly smooth. It was not that rocky because I had friends who were fashion merch people. Like my best friend, like we work together. She works at Adidas. Like her name is Alia. We were best friends in college. We're still very close friends. When I needed to learn buying, like she was there to like help me and like teach me like, oh yeah, like this is what, like I wouldn't know what OH means. I wouldn't know that OH is on hand. I wouldn't know what sell through was. I wouldn't know what like all the abbreviations in fashion are insane. But I wouldn't know any of that without leaning on her. So like she was really a big part of like that transition for me. And then there have been rockier transitions, like the transition out of I had left urban at one point to go back into interior design. That was sort of a rocky transition just because I was like not sure if I wanted to continue in fashion or I want to continue in architecture. And so like that was a rockier transition. I was like sort of unemployed in between that time. So there are definitely easy transitions and transitions where you'll be, you know, guided by friends and people around you, but there are definitely harder transitions as well, like where you will, you know, be like, oh, where's the job? Like, what's going on? Or like, you know, unsure moments. But I think that that's a part of like figuring it out and a part of the like the overall journey that makes a career.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, thank you again for sharing all that with us. It's truly amazing to see that content, but I've never related more to the sentence you said earlier that like I'm not the worst buyer. Um, and because I'm currently in that position, and I kind of wanted to get a follow-up question to Makeda's of when you're moving through different like parts of fashion, I guess, in my like experience, and your only experience really is with buying or with something specific, and you want to move into different departments, like how did you navigate offering what skills you have in another department when your only experience on your resume is one thing, if that makes sense?
Okay, that's a really good question because like that's a really like important thing just because like so many people like don't get an internship or like don't like, you know, have like 4 or 5 internships or don't know people. So it's really important, I think, for me, like I always leaned on the fact that like I had multiple projects outside of that. Like definitely, like I said, I wasn't the worst buyer, but I wasn't the best buyer. And like that's okay. Like in navigating that, like, you know, moving, you like you just learn, like, you know, if you're not great at buying, like, but you love fashion and you like e-commerce, like there's so many different jobs, so many different opportunities for you know, to like transfer different departments. And a lot of companies, if they like you, they will be willing to say, oh, like, yeah, like you, we would love to see you in like digital visual merchandising, or we would love to see you on the buying team or like the operations team or something like that. I feel like that does happen a lot, but in terms of diversifying your resume, really like look at the projects that you've done. And if you haven't done any relevant projects, like build out projects, like even like free, like in your free time. Like I think a lot, the thing that got me hired at Urban, like they usually ask you to do a project. And my project basically got me hired. Like I didn't have a background. My degree said that I was in architecture, and like I was being interviewed for a buying role for the home department, but they were like, you have no buying experience. Like, why are you here? But like they saw that I could like lay things out and like I had a sort of visual story that I could tell, and they're like, okay, that's great. We could use that. So like there are so many different skills that a person could have, whether it's more analytical skills, like are you good with numbers? Like build out a project about that. Are you good with aesthetics? Build out a project about that. And I feel like that is really a good way to reach an audience or a recruiter.
Thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Go ahead, Taylor.
I was just wondering, obviously the fashion world is always forever changing and the days are very different, but for the most part, what does a normal day look like in your field?
A normal day for me, like I said, like it's very cross-functional, as you just saw, like that Teams message, like that's a normal day. Most days, like it's a lot of that. Like I'm in probably 25 to 30 different chats with different people, whether we're talking people who are international, people who are like the buying team, and then people who are like just product launch, like different teams. There's a multitude of different teams. So a normal day for me looks like from the jump, it's like open my laptop. First thing I do, check my emails. Fashion is definitely a lot of emails depending on like which role you're in. I think I cannot stress that enough. It's a lot of emails. So usually every morning I'll wake up to 30 to 45 emails that I have to read. And then out of those 30 to 45, I probably have to reply to about 20. And then throughout the day, like it sort of trickles in based on what you send out will determine what you get in. So like that's sort of a normal day, starting with the emails. Then I look at my calendar. What meetings am I in? Am I prepared for those meetings? How do I prepare for those meetings and prepare the talking points that I need to prepare? And then go into those meetings, get the answers that you need. And if you don't get the answers you need, sort of problem solving to chase down those answers. Because like, once again, when you're in a professional field, like not knowing is not an answer. And after that, like after most of my meetings, I sort of like start executing my work. So like whatever I have to do that day, put together content, even build out a meeting. That's sort of what my day looks like. And it's a lot of back and forth, but there's some travel involved sometimes with my job as well. So that's sort of what my day looks like.
Thank you.
Hashtag the importance of checking emails, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Oh.
Great practice while you're in school.
Checking and reading them.
Yes.
Don't just open and see, oh, we have 40 emails in here. Close. I know we want to do that. We want to do that all the time too, everyone. So we don't blame you, but it is good practice now to do that. Who else has any questions? We have about 6 minutes left that we get to admire the brain of Sean. So everything that is Sean. So does anybody else have anything? Because if you don't, I know the professors can take it away, but we want to give you all the opportunity. Anyone? There's someone I really want to talk and I really want to call on her, but I don't know if I should. And she's smiling because she knows that I want to call on her. And now she knows. She knows. Should I do it, Professor Wyatt? You think I should call on her?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, T. You don't have anything to say, T?
I don't, because everything was pretty much explained, especially for me.
But you know what though, Tiana, this is really great for you. So
it is.
Tiana is our fashion scholarship fund winner. And we've always talked about how intense the scholarship is, but she is getting ready to move to the next level. So we can cheer her on for the $10,000 competition. So she, as a part of the project, she really has to think about a digital strategy.
Yes,
so this was so perfect for you.
No, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Professor
So I know
Watson
we put you
backed
on the
me up.
spot.
She backed me up. You see,
Mhm.
this is such a good connection for you. And Tiana is also about to graduate and creating her own streetwear collection. So foster this relationship as well. You know, use him as a networking tool, and ask him about digital merchandising. Like, what does he get impressed? Maybe I'll give you the question. What does he see when he sees digital merchandising that he's impressed by? Or does he look at other people's resumes that are younger resumes and say, ooh, this person has potential? What is it? You know, ask something like that.
I was waiting for someone to ask that.
I mean, I'll answer that. Like, I'll definitely answer that. I think a lot of people really think like, oh, my experience is just going to get me the job, or like, oh, I worked an internship, I should just get the job. Like, I think it's important to know, like, and this is going to sound very harsh. Well, everyone who's applying, they went to college, they worked an internship. Like, and it's 35 of them. Like, the recruiter who's looking through that looked through that 50 times already. They don't like care about that, to be quite honest. Like, I think a lot of fashion is visual. Like, they do care that you have the skills, but more than likely you apply, like, they're assuming that you had some sort of skill. And I think it really is about the additional work that comes with it. And those are the things that stand out. A lot of the time when we're hiring on our team, different interns, we have them build out projects and things like that. Like, that is what gets people hired, and like what makes applications stand out. Like, if you get an application and then they have a section for you to attach something, like, always be attaching something. Like, if you have a resume and you just send a resume, like that's great. But like, if there's like a space to be like, oh, like portfolio, like that's a trap. Like, you should 100% be putting a portfolio there, because it's like they're letting you know that's what they want to see. And not seeing that, I think, is definitely a big mistake that a lot of people make. I mean, it was a mistake that I was making a lot of the time too, thinking even in architecture, like, oh yeah, like I studied architecture, like this should be a no-brainer for them. But it's like, it's not always that simple when there's such a competition of people who, you know, like I said, like there are multiple jobs I applied to where there were 117 applicants and like I was the person they called back, or there were even 15 applicants and like I didn't get a call back. So, you know, it's all about really trying to stand out, and the best way to stand out is to have sort of like extra documentation, reaching out to recruiters and like going that extra mile, following up with people, being persistent. Like, that is what people noticed.
And Professor Avent, you know, multiple times on multiple occasions, she'll send out emails to the students sharing details about Portfolium for the merchandising students in particular, because typically we don't have, you know, these grandiose portfolios. We do a lot of projects that entails both creative and business applications, right? But we don't require you to put anything together when you graduate, but you should be doing that on your own. That's why Portfolium is so important. Textile design does it, and fashion design definitely does it, which is awesome. So that is a great, fantastic tip. So not from us, so maybe they'll listen now since it came from you.
Well, I hope like, if nothing, I hope I've been very helpful. Like, I really want everyone to just take away from this that, you know, if you're creative and, you know, fashion driven, that you can do it too. Like, 3 years ago, if you would have told me I would be working in this role, I would have laughed in your face. Like, I would have been like, no way. But you know, there's a lot of options that you can take. There's a lot to do. Like, don't give up because something doesn't work out the first time, or maybe that like ideal plan is not, you know, solid. Like, keep going, keep pushing, and like persevere through it. Like, fashion is definitely a very hard industry to break into. It's hard to work in week to week, take it from me. But definitely, like, I want everyone to really feel inspired and like driven to follow like whatever their professional goals are, and know that they can, you know, ascertain them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, I was wondering if
Fabulous.
possible,
Oh,
we
go ahead,
could-
Paulina.
oh, sorry, if we were able to take a picture or something, if possible. I didn't know what would be the best way, or what, Professor, if you wanted
I'm
me
gonna
to.
stop recording.